Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of our Garlington podcast. Today we have a topic which is really close to our hearts. So 20 years ago, there was a big uproar in the city. The Bradford riots took place 20 years ago. So today we're going to go back. We're going to talk about the Bradford riots at the time, and then we're going to come forward and we're going to ask the question, has Bradford changed 20 years on from the riots? So we have a panel who's somewhat expert in this matter. So Sister Zaida who at the time founded Fair Justice for All campaign. This was a campaign which was really campaigning for the prison sentence of the people, for the youths of the time that got prison sentences. So we'll talk a little bit more to Sister Zaida shortly, and brother Sharat, who is a youth worker. He was a youth worker 20 years ago. He's a youth worker today, but that doesn't quite give justice to what he does. So I'm going to ask brother to just give us a little bit of an introduction to his youth center and some of the activities and what happens there. Brother, if you tell us what your youth center is and then some of the work you do there.
Assalamu alaikum, Imam Sahib, Assalamu alaikum, Baba, and Zahida. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sharat. I'm the co-founder of the Mary Magdalene CIC Church in Bradford, which is just basically off White Abbey Road. If you're back of Pakistani Community Centre, there's an old building that was abandoned for nearly 30 odd years. About 7 years ago, the local authorities told me that they no longer required youth workers. And I was put in a pool of youth workers that the council said that they're going to get rid of because of the austerity measures, because of the Conservative government that came into power. As a result of that, I left the service because of the changes that were occurring at the time. And I ended up buying an old church that was just on the doorstep of the community that I wanted to work in, and also the community I live in, and also the community I wanted to serve. So, rest is history. I ended up with an old church, which was absolutely. When you've ever come to the church, you'll see how beautiful it is, and some of the programs that we deliver there are absolutely amazing. Because once you've come to the church, you will always want to get involved in some of the programs that we deliver there at the centre. Now, the $1 million question is, what do we do? What we do? I'm a youth worker by trade. 20 years ago, like I said, I was a youth worker. 20 years later, I'm still a youth worker. Because why? This is the only profession that I will ever work in. This is the only job that I actually know, which gives me the satisfaction. And it's also the only job that actually motivates me to get out of bed in the morning to actually make a change for some of the young people I work with and the people that I actually serve that actually use the centre. Now, the centre has lots of different programs. One of the programs, if you ever come to the centre, is a prison mentoring program, which was Zahida, who's also got me introduced to the mentoring program. And now, successfully, I run a mentoring program in the prisons of HMP Leeds and also HMP Wilson, which allows some of the offenders that get released, especially from the BAME communities, to work in the community and kind of reset them back into communities, and also kind of encourage them not to get them involved in the life of crime, as we have nearly 16,000 people currently in the prison system right now, if you're aware. So that's one of the programs that we deliver, the mentoring program. Now, as part of that, other programs that we've got, we have a youth club at night in the evenings, which young people come and get involved in some of the programs. We run a successful Duke of Edinburgh Awards for young people that want to do outdoor education program, which is highly successful if you're applying for jobs and putting it on your CV for the future and getting to universities to say that you've actually completed the Duke of Edinburgh Awards. We run bike repair centres. We run bike-led sessions, which you can actually get involved with, getting programs, going out on a bike ride with your families. We have a program called Dads and Lads and Lasses. Basically, bring your dad, bring your family members, and we'll do an activity together, because it's all about this absent fathers, absent parenthood that we have in our community right now. So we're trying to encourage families to get involved in some of the programs that we deliver. That just leads us on to nicely to something that we've recently been commissioned to deliver, which is what we call youth cuts. We've actually opened a hairdressing studio in the centre, which allows young people to actually learn to cut hair, get involved with some of the discussions, and kind of relay some of that, those kind of discussions around young people around anxiety, around depression, around mental health, around getting involved in other programs. So there's a center. It's very vibrant. I've got to say, Alhamdulillah. It's lots of du'as from family and friends and people that support our programs. And we also run various other programs, from play schemes to boxings and Zumba classes to different activities that we do. I could talk to you all day about the activities that we deliver at the centre. If you do want to catch us, we're on the social media, we're on the World Wide Web as well. So you just want to catch us, you could actually use our platform to see what goes on at the centre. So if you feel free to want to pop in, Alhamdulillah, I'm always open with open arms to get involved in some of the programs that we do.
Oh wow! So I keep saying to people when they like ask, "Oh, did I do okay in the podcast?" And one of the big things is when someone is really passionate about something, it often comes across in the podcast, and you quite clearly see how passionate brother is about the community and about the activities he does, and it's amazing to see. It always is, and it always amazes you when you see someone who's so passionate about it. MashaAllah. The last person I had to introduce on the panel is Molna Sajid, our ever-present Molna Sajid, our leader on this podcast and the whole big driver for our Girlington. So I want to start by asking Molna Sajid a question. So since we're talking about the Bradford riots, Molna Sajid, you were not in Bradford 20 years ago, right?
No, 20 years ago, I was a nice, young, handsome man
And
living away.
Molna
Alhamdulillah.
Sajid, you're still young and handsome, Molna Sajid. So,
Mashallah.
20 years ago, what did you hear about the Bradford riots when it was going on, when it started up? What was your experience of the Bradford riots? What was going on in this faraway land 20 years ago?
Yeah, we were living in Lancashire, Rawtenstall, a small little town, and we often used to come to Bradford every 3 to 4 weeks to meet our relatives. Um, so those days there was no mobile phones or no WhatsApp or no messaging services. Uh, so, like I said, Baba, so we never had no mobile phone. So it was just the BBC News, and I remember at that time it was the BBC News at 9 o'clock, not at 10 o'clock, and we were just seeing Bradford and White Abbey Road, lots of fire, lots of youth on the street, police there, and you know that time we didn't know what started it, what's happened, and all we're seeing is a lot of Asian young lads firing at the police and cars being petrol bombed, and we're seeing Oak Lane where the BMW garage where cars have been taken out and everything. So we think, well, what the hell's going on here? So obvious, you sort of paint it in a negative way, and you think, what the hell are they doing? They're doing damage to their own community, their own city. Uh, they should go home. And so these were the thoughts that were going through my mind. And if I think back now, and I think what most the people in the rest of England, if you are from a white predominant, English background in those towns and cities, what must you be thinking? What's happening to it looked like a scene from somewhere in a war-torn country, and not a scene here in England, in the UK. So that was the thoughts that were going through my mind. Like I said, we didn't really know what started this and what's happening, but all the pictures just it was just youth against the police and everything that. So like I said, then the next few days when we got a whiff of some of the story, and um, it was disturbing to hear some of the things. So that's why today, even it'll be an education for myself, what happened after the riots, and what's impact has it had 20 years on, as an imam now, 19 years at Masjid Umar. What impact did the riots have? Remember, because I think there's certain things that paint Bradford. One was the Bradford fire at the football stadium, one was these riots. So people, if you just say Bradford, and certain things pop up, and I think riots is one of those things. It was a negative story that came out from Bradford, but is there any positives that come out? Have we benefited? Have we seen some change? I think today that's a discussion, and I think I'll learn a lot from our guests today, and hopefully I look forward to listening to them, and hopefully whatever's happened, we can take responsibility of our community and make a change. And remember, change starts from yourself. And the thing is, we all got to make this intention that we've got to make Bradford a better city. And this is my place. I'm going to live here. I'm going to work here. But how can I make it a better place to live?
I think Mullah Sahib, you ask one of the big questions there is like what started it? So what sparked the Bradford riots? And I think our panel, if you could help us out and just go back 20 years, what was the build up to it? Because it wasn't like everyone just came out on the streets and went for it. There was a build up, there was tension building. So Brother Sharif, sister, what was the tensions about, and what sparked these riots?
I'm going to let Sharat lead on this to begin with his perspective, because believe it or not, Sharat and I did not quite know each other 20 years ago. So Sharat, if you start on where you were,
Sure.
and your perspective, and then I will give you my perspective.
Okay, 20 years ago, we was told the right-wing fascists, BNP, were actually going to march into our city. As a young person, I was 26 years old. I was working as a youth worker for the local authorities. We heard that, and the tension within the community is absolutely, it went from 0 to absolutely 100, thinking that these people are actually going to come to our communities. They're going to have a demonstration in our city centre, and therefore we're going to go show some support in the city centre to say that this is not allowed. Now, when we were in the city centre, there was lots of demonstrations taking place. There was lots of people, having various different speeches. There was lots of people from community leaders. There were lots of people from the police. There was lots of people that have actually ended in the city centre at the time. Now, the right wing were given a little situation, a little corner just next to St George's Hall, where it was cornered off, and they were allowed to say what they want to say. They were allowed to, speak out openly and allow the people that was actually came to the centre to get actually hostile. They were actually getting tension because some of the defamatory stuff they were actually saying. Now, there wasn't anything happening until there was a young lad that was walking up Ivegate, where he walked and he went past the pub, and one of the right-wing fascists actually smashed the bottle on his head, where it actually escalated into a full-scale disturbance at that time. Now, the thing is, there's lots of people in the city centre. There's lots of people, the right-wing fascists have ended up in the pubs. They've ended up throwing bottles. They've started to, launch attacks at the people that are walking past, that have nothing to do with it whatsoever. Now, this young lad got attacked just outside Ivegate, got a bottle smashed on his head. He was splattered on the floor. I was there within, 2 minutes of him being laced on the ground and getting bottles thrown at him. Before you know it, we were attacked by the horses that came charging up with the police to say, back off, and we'll try to contain this. Now, the situation was that, did they get contained, or did it get escalated into something big on a full scale? Now, a lot of people will say, well, they got pushed back into the communities. A lot of people say, well, they should have contained it. I've had lots of discussions on social media. At that time, the riots, that took place 20 years ago, it could have been dealt differently. We should have dealt with it. We should have contained the disturbances. We should have contained, the people that that came into Bradford. But unfortunately, we were let down. We were let down to an extent that people did not realise that these people went from Burnley to Oldham, and they came to Bradford. Now, we should have never allowed these people to demonstrate in our city centre. Under no circumstances. We should have given an industrial estate on M606, allow them to carry out the demonstration and say, that's as far as you come into the city centre, and that's as far as we will allow you to come and demonstrate. But however, we were allowed, people allowed them to come into city centre, the local authorities allowed them to come into the centre, the people from uniform services were there to say, well, you could have this peaceful demonstration. But the problem that was having was young people will not accept these right-wing fascist groups coming into our centre. Now, the situation escalated. It went from, bottles getting smashed, people getting stabbed, and actually pushing people back into their own communities. Now, as the night progressed, the disturbance was a full 9 hours, of pure mayhem, and absolutely nobody from our leadership, nobody from our local authorities, nobody from any organization actually knew what was actually going in order to contain the actual riot from escalating into the community. And that's what we try to come back 20 years later, and we're still having this discussion to say, could we have done something better? Could we have done something differently? Could we have, contain this problem? And the answer is yes, we could have, if we had more local leadership within our authorities, within our communities, within our people that we serve and protect. And this is why we're 20 years later having to have this conversation around what's happened on that really devastating night for Bradford, which will always be in the memory of lots of people for the wrong reasons. And we're still recovering 20 years later as a result, and we feel it, and it's unfortunate that we have to, live with that dark night in our history for Bradford.
Shout out on that point that you just mentioned. Like I said, we were living in Lancashire. It wasn't just Bradford; it was Oldham, Burnley. That whole season, that whole week and months, it was difficult. Even going to school, you just felt targeted, or you felt tensions. Yeah,
There
whites
was
against
there was a there was a rise of the right wing. There was a rise of the BNP, the EDL, the fascist BNPs, whatever political party they were affiliated to. There was a lot of hostility to around the Islamophobia, the discriminations, the hatred that was getting breeded in communities around the religious organisations that they served. And
so someone pointed that the authorities should have recognized this and made sure that had they come into Bradford, especially with the big population of the Asian community, any small spark can set off something big. So they should have contained this, like you said, or they should have played a major part.
100%. We should have never ever allowed these people to actually demonstrate in our city centre 20 years ago. If our local authorities, our local leaders allowed them, if we all unified and said, I'm sorry, but you are not allowed to demonstrate in Bradford, and then we're going to give you a designated area outside Bradford or somewhere else, and you could have your demonstration, and we're happy for you to do whatever you want out there, but you are not allowed to come in our city centre and do this demonstration. But the thing was, Burnley was burned down, Oldham was burning down, and our authorities knew this. And what did they actually do about it? What did they do to prevent this happening from actually allowing them to come to our city centre? They could have turned these people away. They could have stopped this from happening. They could have said, no, we're not having this in Bradford. But they actually encouraged them to actually come into Bradford and allow them to actually demonstrate in our city centres and allow them to, speak freely about what's going on, around the hatred that they were breeding. So there was a system failure, from management to leadership to local authorities in every aspect, and it still hurts me 20 years later that people still have not taken accountability for what they did that 20 years ago.
So I wanna ask Sister Zaida. So what's some of your memories on that day, or building up even the weeks coming up to that day where them riots took place?
Okay, I'm going to give you my perspective as a young woman. I'm going to be honest with you. I was working for an organization, a voluntary sector organization. At the time, I knew of our so-called leaders because in my previous jobs, I'd heard of our leaders. And I'm going to be honest with you, on the night of the riots, there was tension in Bradford. I'm going to give you the perspective from an Asian person living on the other side of White Abbey Road. So on that particular day, I had a dawat in Girlington. And I remember all that morning, I heard about this demonstration that was going on in the city centre. I knew of the people who had organised it, and I remember the tension it was eerie. That whole day was eerie. It was almost like a calm before the storm. You could feel it in the air. You could cut it with a knife. I remember my mum saying, "Don't you dare go to town. Nobody goes to town." And we were like, "Yeah, right, okay, mum. We got this dawah to go to, so we're not going to be in town." But I could see that You know, when you look at your community, there wasn't that buzz there. There was something brewing, and it was felt. I felt it on that day, and I'm going to be honest with you. I was quite blinkered in the lead up to it, and even on the day, I actually went to my Dawat. I'm going to be honest with you. I had heard that these things were happening, and at that time, I wasn't a campaigner. I was somebody's wife, somebody's daughter, somebody's mother who had to get to a Dawat before I got slappers from my elders to say, "Why are you late?" And the only time it hit home for me was when I got a frantic phone call from my brother, my younger brother, and he was in absolute tears. And all I could hear him shouting was, "They won't stop. I can't make him stop. Come and get me." And I'm like, "Whoa, calm down. Where are you?" When he told me, and that day, I only see my brother cry a few times, but that day he was inconsolable because he said, my older brother was there. He goes, "I tried to stop him, and he kept saying, he goes, they won't listen, Zyda." And my brother at that time, he had re-engaged with Islam. He had a very open heart to understanding peace. He was there in the front line trying to help to calm it down. But who was he? He was a nobody. He wasn't a leader. But he still felt the need to go in front of those throwing of the stones, the petrol bombs, the shouting, trying to talk to the brothers on the other side, saying to them, like, "Look, you know what? Don't do it. Please calm down. Calm down." And when I picked him up and took him home, that's when it hit me.
Sure.
What the hell has gone on? From a peaceful protest into town. And that night, I'm going to be honest with you, I lived just off Manningham Park. All night I didn't sleep because all I could hear was cars shouting, helicopters. It was like a war zone. And I remember not sleeping. My husband, we kept looking outside in case the BMP turned up, during the night and started to smash our cars, because clearly the police now were disheartened. They were run down. If it was, they had just had a full on fight with our young Asian youth, so they were clearly focusing somewhere else. Where I lived, I was panicking because I was quite near Keighley, Shipley, Denham, and I just thought, oh my God, if the BMP came down, how am I going to ring? And I remember, and this is how sad it was, I actually rung up the police and said, I think I heard a big bang, and I said, I think the BMP are here. And she said, how do you know that? And I said, because I'm really scared. And then for me, it kind of like stopped there. The days that followed, I'm going to be honest with you, we started hearing the rumors of what happened and everything. And I'm going to be honest with you, I got on with my life. I found out my older brother was involved. We gave him a few one-twos and said to him, are you silly? You're an idiot. Why did you do it? And, it was very much chastising him. We weren't supporting him at that point. Other things were coming out, words, and then I think for me, it was the pictures in the newspaper.
Sure.
So when the pictures started appearing in the newspaper, that was sinister. Because let's go back 20 years, suddenly 150 plus pictures are starting to appear. And then they say, it hits home first before you start igniting the fire of doing something. So I remember when my brother's picture appeared, we were on the phone to him and he was on his way back from work. And he literally just handed himself into the nearest police station. My mum was shouting at him. I was shouting at him. His wife was shouting at him. Everybody was saying, have you? And he goes, look, I've done it. I've handed myself in. And we just stopped it there. We thought, you know what, leave it. He's done it now. He's done the right law-abiding thing. Because up to then, everything was so negative. I could see that I involuntarily got involved with the blaming culture that came with it afterwards. The shame, the hanging our head down. Let's be those law-abiding citizens. Yes, they did wrong. We're embarrassed, everything. It took a guy called Aki Nawaz to get in touch with my half brother in London and say, what are you doing about this? This is so wrong. And when he said that, and he got in touch with me, and he said, my brother said, look, Zaide, he goes, you've worked with the BME community, you've worked with ethnic minorities in your previous jobs. Why are you so quiet? And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, what do you want me to do? And he said, there's something sinister and wrong here. And I could not see it. And I thought, wait a minute, what are they seeing on the outside that I'm not seeing inside Bradford? Because inside Bradford, we were doing the law abiding thing. Every time a picture came up of our sons, brothers, nephews, husbands, sons, we got hold of them. We said, right, come on, we're taking it to police station. Because we trusted that this was the right thing to do. But actually, outside looking in, the word witch hunt came.
Sure.
People saying, this is wrong. And this is where the campaign started, because as a family, I was asking my brother, what's your solicitor said? He said this. But what has he said? What is the evidence? Why is it a riot? Why is it not a disturbance? And suddenly I thought, if I'm feeling this, how many other families, and then I'm going back into 6 months after the riots, 4 to 6 months after the riots, when his court case was coming up, and when he was sentenced and everything, I was absolutely devastated, because we thought if we told the judge that my brother had no previous, he threw one stone, and if we said to him that, look, my brother, this is not how he usually behaves, they called my other brother in as a witness to say, look, he tried to stop him, trying to work with the system, trying to advocate for the behaviors of that day as family, to say, look, yes, it was wrong, but this isn't the character of this person. And we just got thrown 10 years. The Riot Act carries 10 years sentence. I don't care if they've given us 5 years, 2 years, or 6 months. The sentence itself is 10 years. And nobody told us that. And that's where the campaign started from. Because if I was feeling this as a sister, and my mum was absolutely devastated, I saw what he did to his wife. I saw what he did to my sisters and other females and males in the family, and then my other cousin, that I was like, there must be more families like me. And that's where the campaign started, was what happened. And then, what really hurts me, and I absolutely agree with Shara about the build-up. We had a riot before the 2001 riot. And that was Bradford against the police. It was the manhandling of an Asian woman that sparked the first riot. It was not a race riot. It was the manhandling of an Asian woman by the police. At that point, and Shara, correct me if I'm wrong, was that 1998?
Yeah, 999.
I think it was
Yeah.
1998. And you could see there's a distrust between the police and us from there.
Yeah.
And that, I think, personally, I hope the police are impartial. They do not let that influence them. But I feel that when I look at the footage afterward, when I started my campaign, and I always say to the powers that be, explain to me, how come you can get so many divisions together if this wasn't something that you pre-planned? Because no way could it have escalated if there wasn't brutality and push from the police. And like I asked that question to Martin Baines, Jonathan Pickles, the police that were brave enough to come and meet the families, that why did you push them into an Asian area? And they said they did it because they thought it would have calmed them down. I said, calm them down?
Yeah.
How can it have calmed them down?
That
You
still
literally,
shocks me now that, when the failure in our system said that they're going to push our youths back into their own areas, so they allow them to carry on doing what they want to do in our communities, and it will calm them down. That was an absolutely diabolical, decision that was made, and whoever made that decision, I just cannot believe it that we're having this discussion, because every single day, I get data that gets sent to me every single day, because you got to remember, when those families handed those kids into the police station, the local authority at that time says, we're going to make an example out of you. Yeah. Judge Stephen Gullick said, I've given the green light and I'm going to make an example out of these people, and so that it never ever happens again. Now, I've been looking through research and all sorts of data that's been published, and what really intrigued me most is they said, well, 1,000 police officers were called that day, 9 hours of rioting, 300 police officers were injured, 300 arrests were made, 7 to 27 million pound worth of damage, which they couldn't quite pin exactly how much exactly it was. 187 people were charged for riots. Out of that, 45 were charged for violent disorder. 200 jail sentences. That was total 604 years. 604 years for the people that got charged for the riots. That is extortionate. That is unbelievable. Why? Because our authorities give the golden ticket to Stephen Gullick to say, make an example out of these people, that they never ever do this again.
And I don't think it was only just our local authority, Sharat, because in the campaign, what I'd uncovered was that there was a meeting at the Hilton of our so-called leaders, both religious and I would say public leaders, the ones that were businessmen and women. They were called, and the words that filtered through to me in my campaign was throw the book at them.
Yeah,
and that is something that is now, I could understand the structural damage done, the potential loss of life after the burning of the Labour Club, the car that came into the police. I understand all that. But to have your leaders say, throw the book at them, because,
Wow.
I don't know if anybody's watched the documentary that was done, but I'm going to be honest with you. When we started this campaign, we unlocked a lot of discrepancies, the timelines, the ringers. If it hadn't been for, when we started overturning our the Court of Appeal the second time around with Imran Khan, the reason we did it, and this was down to Islamic Relief. Islamic Relief, a week before the riots, got a threatening message from the far right saying, we are coming on to Bradford on this day.
Sure.
Believe me, having that evidence, because before that, all the boys were being trialed on was the disturbance. None of the far right was taken into account by Stephen Gullick. All he cared about was the damage done to the police and the damage done to the city. He didn't
These
want to
were
look
young
at
people. These were young people.
what led to it.
Yeah, these were young people that have never been involved in criminality before. The young people have never got involved in any shape of crime, and they were actually, being presented to Stephen Gullick, and he was absolutely nailing them down for 4, 5, 6, 10 years at a time to say, well, you know what, you threw one brick, and therefore you're going to get punished for that crime. And you know what, it was shocking. It was absolutely shocking for the families.
But Shara, I totally agree with you. But you know what really hurts me is, in the campaign, I didn't see anybody other than the mothers and the daughters on those picket lines with me outside the prison, outside the courts. I never saw anybody from the community other than the ones that were directly affected outside. I didn't see people like who are so-called leaders having an afterthought, thinking, actually, maybe we should go and support them. If you look at the pictures, those pictures are just normal people who have been affected. The pain that that mother went through. And I remember the first meeting we had, and when she cried, the whole place was in tears. And look, credit where it's due. Yeah, I'm not siding. But the only people who came forward and took that head on was the police. I remember that day when the police sat in that room, and believe me, I just thought, you know what? They said we need, and they sat and they took it from those families. The animosity, the hatred, the tears, the swearing. I didn't see any of the Asian business leaders there. I didn't see any of the councillors there. I didn't see any of them.
That during that period, there was in the local newspaper every day they would have pictures of youngsters.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, wow, this is not like obviously what happened was bad and playing down that, but the thing was, one thing, for your child to appear on a national newspaper, and it was like it's putting somebody down. And second of all, the jail sentences that they got for throwing 1-2 stones, and these are kids that never done anything before, or they've never committed a crime, and it was tough and it was hard. And only, like, Zaid, you've
Yeah,
experienced it, as a family, what you've
Those,
been through.
those mugshots, Imam Sahib, when they put those mugshots every week, they put 30 people every single week. They're in the Telegraph Nagas to say, well, do you recognise these people, and could you report us and grass them up and send them down to the police station? That was absolutely demoralising, because every single week people were living in fear that were actually at the riots, actually did something, actually threw something, thinking, you know what, next week is going to be my photograph, next week is going to be my photograph, and next week I'm going to get a knock on the door from the police to say, well, you know what, you need to come to the police station. That must have been absolutely shocking for families to actually living in fear, to think that their family member was actually going to be in the paper the following week. And you know what? I know family and friends that went through that, mental torture, and it was absolutely devastating when the knock came on the door.
The reason I'm mentioning
this,
this is that, look, we're not backing what is wrong, and what, even if somebody from the
absolutely.
agency done is wrong. But what happened was, it wasn't just Bradford. That whole, I was telling you, we, and Zaida knows, we live from a small little town in Lancashire where predominantly white people, but the tension of BMP during the whole period, that month, those few months in Burnley, Corn, uh, Rochdale, Oldham, our small little towns, we felt it. We were scared. We were scared of coming out of our houses. So it's not just about, okay, these individuals did wrong, what they did was wrong, but they were reacting to something that's been going on and been brewing on for us a good period of time. So how come the authority didn't stop that? The main thing,
But
the
look,
root cause.
Malana Sahib, what it boils down to is, look, I remember me and Shara have got a good circle of friends. And, I remember when I was young, my dad used to say that, don't go out at certain times because we were surrounded by pubs where we were. They didn't say anything to us, but there were days when we were told, look, stay home. Don't go out. There's something going on. There's something brewing. Paki bashing. I remember when Ibra told me about when he used to run home from school
Yeah,
because a group of white males thought it'd be a good laugh to do some Paki bashing.
yeah, yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that Bradford, I'm not here to have a go at Bradford. What I'm saying is that, look, you cannot sweep things under the floor. There is clearly discrimination going on. On that day, when Stephen Gullick says, I want to make an example, actually, he didn't make any example of anybody. What he's done is said to the far right, here's a green ticket. They ain't going to riot against you again. They ain't going to come head to head. You do your protesting, yeah,
Yeah.
as the far right. You do your protesting, because believe me, what I did back in 2001 and 2, yeah, is enough to suppress not only the Asian community, but for a black community, for any minority community. Because, these sentencing, yeah, it was a warning, a gagging order to say to any minority community that, if the far right says something, you will be punished. Not the
Yeah.
far right, you will be
Well,
punished. This was a gagging order. Looking back now, 20 years later, this was a gagging order, yeah, of suppressing people a right to protest against somebody who cannot live with our differences. We can live with their differences, but they can't live with our differences. And our differences was the color of our skin, our culture, but we were law abiding citizens. And some of those young men that were locked up, Malana Saab and Shara, their life stopped. There's people who were in their final year of their degrees. There's some lads that were starting their degree. There were others who were breadwinners of their family. Suddenly their wives were classed as single parents. There was mothers who were professionals that were chastised by the community because you should have known better because you're in a better job. Your son or your brother should have known better because of the status you hold in the community. And I'm going to be honest with you. Did Bradford Public let the Fair Justice campaign for all down? Absolutely.
yes, it did.
Because
Yeah,
it was the same women who were directly affected outside those courts. I never, like, I'm going to be honest with you, when I look at these protests against for Palestine, everybody comes out. I like to say, you know what? Where were you when we wanted you?
Sure.
Those women went to London. And I remember, and I've said this story to Shara, we were outside the Home Office shouting, Blunkett, Blunkett, you know, racist, yeah? These women hadn't even been out of Bradford, some of them. These were older, first generation mothers who got onto a coach, trusted me enough, got down there to London, met Imran, met Saroj, met Aki. And, you know, this Japanese tourist was watching us and he came up to me and goes, what are you doing? So I explained to him and he goes, give me a placard. I want to protest with you. And I said, why? He goes, Hiroshima. When they dropped the bomb on Japan, he goes, we are still feeling that pain. And he goes, why cannot people in England see the pain of these mothers? Their own communities let them down. I remember people were saying to me, Zed, you've signed a death wish for yourself. Your career is stopped. You're not going to get out of this. And you know what? Allah is a provider of everything. My
Alhamdulillah.
intentions were that, you know, when it said fair justice for all, actually what I was saying was, if they could do this to a minority community, what are they doing to the other communities when it comes to sentencing?
Yeah. Well, talk
Because we
about
still
sentences.
know there's disproportionate sentencing going on. We know that white people get less sentenced than the black and Asians. We still know
Exactly.
stop and search is happening. We know all this. Me and Shara have been in the prison system, resettling young Muslim, young BME background, and I sometimes look at the sentencing. I had a 22-year-old black boy man, because he was part of a gang, he got 15 years. He's 22. He's not even got parole in those 15 years. He's 22.
Yeah.
You know, why
I
are we
remember him.
allowing the judicial system to do this to anybody without looking at the bigger picture? And I'm not saying they shouldn't pay for the crime they've done, but actually look at the length and the impact it has on rehabilitating that young person back out, and secondly, the impact on the family, because their lives are going to stop for 15 years, or they're going to rub him out and they're not going to exist and they're going to move on. So when that person comes out, they're going to come back to an unknown world. I remember, and I don't know if I shared this with Shara, I remember somebody who in Belmarsh who had served a long sentence. He didn't realize that we had new currency, that the £5 note had changed whilst he was been in prison. And you know, he came back into prison because he said, I can't cope, Zed. I've been so long in prison that I don't know the world out there.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the things, Baba, which I was going to move on to now. Now that you've got an idea of the work that we deliver, one of the programs that I didn't mention to you was clearly with young people is around the prison system, around the criminal justice system. So we've got a project called the Confession Project, which basically talks about the young people around hate crime, talks about young people around Islamophobia, talks to young people about drugs, talks about knives, talks about all the extreme things that young people will get involved into the social media, around county lines, around everything that affects young people. And the program that we deliver at the center allows these young people to have a platform to get involved in all these programs. Now, this, we keep coming back to young people. We keep talking about leadership. We talk about local authorities. We talk about the system failure. We talk about how they were let down. 20 years later, are we still in that same situation where we were 20 years ago? Let's be honest. I mean, what has changed, Zahida? What has changed for the work that I'm delivering? All it is got harder and harder and more difficult as we keep progressing, because of what we're having to face, because of the issues have changed. But we're still 20 years later having to face some of these problems a lot more severe than what we did 20 years ago.
And Shara, I absolutely agree with you. And I don't want people to. I had somebody say to me, I was only young when the riots happened, so what's it got to do with my future? History defines us. And I'm fed up of people saying, Zed, every time you talk about the riots, it's a black spot on the city. Actually, it's not a black spot on the city. It's a black spot on equality and humanity, because we were let down after the riots. If the local authority really looked at leadership, and believe me, there was money put in for leadership. So today, Malana Saab, if God forbid there was a riot, yeah, God forbid if there was a disturbance, we have not got the caliber or the infrastructure to negotiate. And that was the issue that night as well, Sharat.
Yeah.
That between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, I think, or just after 9:15, there was a calm. Because the footage I've seen, there was a calm. Everything stopped. And I remember the leaders had gone in, and I believe you were there as well, Sharat, to try and negotiate with the young people.
Zahida,
And you
that's what I was
couldn't.
going to ask now that, 20 years on, and the title of today's podcast is Has Bradford Changed? Okay, it got a bad name, the impact that it's had on the families, the communities of people, like even till this day, people are feeling the effect of it. What has changed, or has anything changed, or has our community become a better place to live? Are people feeling safe and secure? Are whites welcome into Manningham, Girlington? Do they feel safe when they come here?
Right, okay. So,
You know,
you're asking me to answer £1 million question here, Mulana Saab. All I'm going to say to you is this. Are people still living in Bradford? Absolutely. Did everybody leave? No, it's not a deserted town. Actually, I think it's a very flourishing town at the moment because we've got a gagging order in place. We've been gagged. We've been suppressed. Our mouths have been covered. Yeah. Because when the EDL come again, believe me, the Mums Army, the Safe Pace, they're going to stop any young person from expressing themselves. I'm going to do it. I've got a 19-year-old daughter, and I am really trying to protect her by learning from the lessons. And Stephen Gullick's gagging orders kind of worked because we have been so shamed by the riots, and there's been so little lack of leadership that
Yeah.
I cannot, other than trust myself as a leader for my family, yeah, I would say that I am now responsible for my family, and that's what they've done. They've divided and ruled us, yeah, as a city, the leaders. That Sharat will look after his patch, I will look after my patch, you Malana Sahib will look after your patch, another brother and sister somewhere will look after their patch. But actually, what we're not doing is having a platform to say to, and I agree with Sharat, we should be allowed to say to people like the EDL and the FARA, and believe me, they still exist. Yeah, do not come into this city. But we don't have that platform because we can't trust our leaders, the so-called elected leaders, to say that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're Rosie and Rizak, they're councillors, they get paid. But actually, what they forget is we voted you in. And I'm going to say this to people out there: anybody you vote in, you vote back out. Because you
Yeah.
know what? We need to look at this and say there needs to be jobs in this city. And we need to stop being those, the recovering mill town or the after the riots town. Actually, no, our leadership should be looking at entrepreneurial ideas
Yeah.
to draw
We,
businesses in.
we need
That should have been
investment.
down to me and you, Malana Saab,
Yeah.
or
And we
Sharat.
need, yeah,
That is
we
down to
need,
the leaders
yeah.
to
Yeah.
profile our city moving forward, and they're the ones who could say to the investors, yeah, that our city has changed. You and I can't,
Yeah.
because who
Well,
are we?
yeah.
If you put
Well,
me in front of a big business person, yeah, who is thinking of building a factory here, they just want to talk to me to say, have we got a skilled workforce? Absolutely.
and Zed, I've said from day one, with these austerity measures that we had, we've got all these youth cuts in and all the youth centres, all the youth clubs that got shut down. We need local youth workers. We need more investment in our young people provisions. We need more investment in opportunities where they're leaving school without any GCSEs or any formal, qualification. These are the young people that will get involved in crime. These are the young people that will go into low-skilled jobs. These are the young people that will get involved in, other forms of survival. These are what we need to start investing in. We need businesses to come into Bradford and not just give us a little bit of scraps and say, well, here you go run a program, and you know what, give us within 6 months, that program is shut down. That is a problem that we've got. We haven't got
Yeah.
any programs that works with local authorities that allows us to work with the madrasas, the Islamic institutions, the the religious faiths. All these programs have started to come in slowly. In Bradford, it's still there, but we always keep coming back to Imam Hassan, which is our leader in Bradford. That's going to say, well, you know what? If something like this on a full scale ever happens again, who's gonna stand up in front and say, you know what? We're not going to allow this to happen. Who are these people?
But Sharat, again, it's that me and you, you and I will work on understanding the issues, grassroots, because we've got that input. But I'm talking about you've got actually, Land Rover. How many Land Rovers? They've got a massive depot here, but their factory's not based here. We buy the cars, but we don't build the cars, right? We've got young people who've got degrees who are working in Morrison's or driving taxis.
Sure.
Why are we not saying to potential big firms that actually this is the level of education we've got? We've got one of the best universities for business here. We do law here, but we don't seem to attract any of the big firms.
Sure.
That's down to the local authority to sell that. But the other thing I'd like to say is, these pictures that they use to, now let's go back 20 years. We didn't have these advanced, iPhones and things. Yeah. They were able to pinpoint through smoke, bombs, petrol bombs, bricks, really clear pictures of those lads, really clear pictures. I'd like to say to the police, where's the drug dealers now? We're in the 21st century. Why are their faces, not in T&A and saying to our community, do you know this drug dealer?
Yeah.
Because they are damaging our community more.
Yeah.
But nobody's jobbing them in.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Just imagine, had there been those riots today, especially with everybody got an iPhone or a smartphone, and everybody just pulls it out and even records what the police are doing, would the police had stopped, rather than carrying on? Do you think that it wouldn't have been as big had those phones been available? So even the other side of it was being recorded.
I'm going to be honest with you, Manan Saab. Again, you can't compare then and now. I can't. Honestly, I've really wrapped my brains. You can't compare then and now.
I think people now, because even the police, they know that they have the cameras as well. So people are more, we're going to get caught as well. So we've got to be careful with what actions we take.
There's more, Manan said, there's more CCTV cameras in the whole city centre of Bradford put together. They could track your movement from one location to another location. Everyone's on social media. Everyone's on all have got Android and smartphones. So the amount of information that gets put onto the social media is unbelievable, because people nowadays, rather than stop a situation, what do they do instead? They get the cameras out and they film it first, and then they put that on their Snapchats, they put that on their various different platforms to say, look, whoa, I've just witnessed this and I was first on the scene. So rather than say, oh, well, you know what, hang on, this is bang out of order, this should never happen, people are filming the situation first and then asking the questions later. So there's more technology has been available now to criminalize, the people that ever get involved, because sometimes this is used against them.
My point was that worked to the police advantage, because nobody had the cameras and nobody took the recordings. They had the cameras. So what happened was they could do what they like. Do you understand? Like nowadays, people think twice because somebody just pulls out a camera and I think, oh no, I better not take this step. So had the police had this happened today, would the police done this much? I don't think so. I think
I agree. Look, the media side, it's almost kind of like comparing it that actually the far right, they need a platform, they will use media, they will advertise it, they would come, but the police will intercept them. They'll intercept them straight away. Yeah. On the other side, you're absolutely right. We've got more media that even, like, I'm going to be honest with you, there's a quarrel in the street, and cameras come out. There's somebody dying on the floor, it's just had an accident, cameras come out first. We are in the question isn't that. The question is, no matter how much footage you get of an incident, it doesn't matter what the incident is, we need to have faith in our judicial system. That evidence is going to be treated as equal for anybody, regardless of their skin color or their religion or their economic or their postcode, because that is what we're not getting. This is why people film everything, because there's a sense of distrust now. You might think it's a great thing. To me, it's a massive distrust to say to the police, if you're filming me, mate, I'm going to film you because I don't trust you. And that stems back to the riots, because on that day, that gagging order that they did to us to suppress us has made us mistrust them even more. Because now everybody will get their phone out. You know, they will get their phone out because I don't trust you. Look what this person said to me. This is what I said. And you could see, I've seen so much footage of police being confronted and they saying, look, could you please put the phone down? No, this is what happened. This is where I was. We are now that scared of the judicial system that we don't trust it. And I think that is the thing, is that the riots now, God forbid, I don't want another riot in any part of the UK. Any part of the UK. I don't want to see those scenes. It's like Shadow said in that documentary, a city was burnt down. There was casualties on both sides. But the lesson that nobody has learned is our judicial system, the CPS, the role of our leaders. And when I say leaders, people say to me, well, why don't you become a leader? That's not the answer.
No.
It's about having faith in our young people to be able to trust the powers that be to equally provide us with the service of living in this community and also having our rights met and also being able to believe in our city. And that has to come from our local authority. And that has to be then from our local community leaders. And, you know, I always say politics and religion don't mix. You know, and this is what happened was the other thing with our sentencing. When 9/11 happened, the sentencing changed. 7/7 happened. The way our lads were treated in those prisons was disgusting. You know, they were. You know, when I said to you, they carried a 10-year maximum sentence. Yeah, people said to me, yeah, but they only got 2.5 years. But that word 10 years meant that they were in Class A prisoners.
Yeah.
They weren't in a D or a C. They were in A's.
Classes.
And even when they were there for 1 day or half a day, they were surrounded by hardened criminals. And these are people who had to protect themselves by putting blades in their soaps so they didn't get attacked.
Yeah.
And this is what people don't get. They're saying, I said, you don't understand. They were in almost AA prisons for throwing one bloody stone.
Yeah.
And then you get people who are drug dealers now. Go back in the days, drug dealers were going in Cat B's and C's.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, and they still are. And I
it's
think
only now they've gone in Cat A's.
Yeah, well, this
and
is
I think that's what people don't get. Is that
Sorry, the one comment that you said there that I just want to ask you about. You said there that politics and religion don't mix. What do you mean by politics and religion don't mix?
So look, I'm a very simple person. I'm not a theologist in any faith, but I am a Muslim, and I practice my faith to the best of my knowledge for my family and myself and the Akhirah. Yeah, that is us. But the politics side of it, yeah, is me as a human being. That's me as a human being wanting to live a life in a country that has not got Islamic principles, but has accepted me who I am. But I should have the right not to be judged by my religion to say that I protest against the sentencing of any person. But why does my religion have to come into it? If I'm not mixing my religion and politics as a person, what gives the right of society to enforce that onto me? That just because I happen to be a Muslim, but when I'm talking about the sentencing, I'm talking about the sentencing. Sorry?
I think as either obvious we can sense the frustration inside you and what you've been campaigning and the unfortunately the biased things that went against you guys and everything that you went, and I think you feel all that frustration, and then like then people look at you as a Muslim as it's always these Muslims and it's their issue and it's their
Yeah,
problems, and
It's
so I
not.
think
yeah.
all that frustration we can see. Uh,
Even when they look at Sharat, they see Asian, then a beard, and
Male.
Hussein
Yeah.
name.
So,
I remember when I was in London, I remember when the Tottenham riots happened, and I remember saying, people that look, the fair justice label isn't just mine. It doesn't belong to me. It does
No.
say fair justice for all. I have no issues if you want to use that word to get justice for your lads. And I want to say, as a human being, as a person who's been through something, and my religion shouldn't come into it. And it's also like the issues around anywhere you've got a minority community or a very strong religious identity, people expect the religious leaders to become leaders.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that's too much to ask from our religious leaders,
Mm.
because you never see the Church of England in Ravenscliffe, do you?
No.
Or Homewood,
so
even though they may not be practicing Christians, they represent their community.
Yeah.
They might put down on equal opportunities. I'm part of the Church of England, or I'm a Christian. They might not be practicing, but you don't see them going in there and speaking on their behalf. So why do they expect our religious leaders to speak on behalf of our Asian community on a subject that is nothing to do with religion, but to do with economics or
Sure.
deprivation? Why are you putting that on them for?
Yeah.
Speak
so
religion to religious leaders,
Keep
but
it
don't
separate.
put what I call the outside world choices of living in a so-called democratic society on our religious leaders. That's why I say religion politics don't mix. The
No.
only time I will
I
listen to
understand.
somebody,
Sorry,
sorry,
sister. I was going to say, so I understand the point that you were saying there. So what I wanted to clear up was that, so obviously Islam as a religion has politics within it, and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we all know that he was a leader and he did a lot of politics, and Molna Sahib can obviously enlighten us much more than I can on that. I just wanted to clear up that point because it almost sounded like once you're in
oh,
religion, you can't get into politics. But obviously, that's
no,
not
no,
what
no,
you
no,
meant, and that's
no,
and
no,
that's
no, no.
very clear.
I was
So
talking
one
about
thing,
my
so yeah,
personal.
100%, and we get it. So one thing that I wanted to kind of push on to, and it's quite clear from when both of you speak, and you speak really passionate about the leaders of our community, and you were clear there that what we don't want to do is mix up the religious aspects, and get our religious leaders, our imams, and get them and force them into this arena to do this stuff. So, and it sounds also like that we don't, from what you guys are saying and what I'm hearing from you guys, is we don't have that infrastructure now. So that connection with the police, that connection with the leaders today. So if Nozabillah, and we're all saying that it shouldn't happen, if something were to spark now, there's still a hotbed, there's a possibility of that stuff could still happen, right? Uh, so,
Baba,
oh,
on that point, what's happened
Imam.
is I think first and foremost, as a Muslim, we've always got to stand up for justice, whatever it is, even if it's against a Muslim, even if against it's your own brother, you've got to stand up for justice. And mashallah, as Sister Zaida and Shada, they've been campaigning throughout, and they felt her, and they felt, on justice, and you could feel the pain in their voices. The thing is, from what lessons we learned, we've had a few EDLs that have come down, and I think council and mosques have got more involved. People are sort of stepping up, and again, obvious how we stepped up to perfection, I don't know, but the thing is, I think we're engaging more, and I think those are lessons that we've learned, that we've got to engage within our community, with the leaders, with the police, with the council and mosques, with the other faith and non-faith people around us, so that we send out those messages to our community. Look, guys, if somebody comes from far right extremists, we've got to stay away, or we've got to just control ourselves and just ignore them. Do you understand? But same time,
But
we've
shall I tell you something, Lana Sahib, I totally agree with you. But there is this one other leadership, and whether we like it or not, the influence they have on our youth. is it goes, but they would not listen to me, but is the so-called drug dealers,
Yeah.
the griming, the
The
garage
music.
music,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
black identity that I see in our young people.
Yeah.
The I have seen it. The gang culture. People have said to me there is no gangs in Huddersfield. There's no gangs in Batley. You just need to see the way our young people cut their hair,
Yeah.
the way they are,
The
the kind of songs they listen to.
yeah, and I think
It's
that's the problem
all
that we
to
got
do
then
that. Though that leadership, that
yeah,
leadership
yeah.
is the
Is
councillor's leadership,
yeah, well this is the
and that
problem that we got.
leadership influences half of those lads that were there protesting or fighting against the police were those angry men fueled by those lyrics, not by what me, Shara, or the local authority has said. It's about this animosity towards the police. They
Sure.
saw an opportunity that night as well, and they said, "Forget the far right. We're just there to hit the police." And I've had lads say that to me.
Yeah.
That and it's through that music, that so-called I don't know if I'm saying it right. Is it griming
Grime
or
is crime, yeah.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing is that when you see them on there, you see they're more diverse than we are, Mulana Sab, because I've seen some of those videos. They've got black, Asian, white, um, uh, the Eastern Europeans. They've got the Western Europeans in
The
there,
travelers, everyone
all
on
on
there.
the same platform, influencing our young people.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is the culture
And
that
that
we
is
need to
that
change.
leadership.
Yeah.
That is where I agree with Sharon. The youth workers need to come back. And I'm going to mention that I was really inspired that day when I went to Sharon's church. Ibrar was working with a group of young Eastern European children to stop them from CSE work. And I remember what I said to him, "Well done." He goes, "Zed." He goes, "It has to be done because tomorrow it could be our own daughters
Yeah.
or their daughters."
Yeah.
And you know what? This is the bottom line, Malana Saab. Leadership, I 100% agree with you. But you know what we need to look at is that actually, the spark that lights the fire are the ones that are not the ones that are in your arena. It's that young person who's been disheartened, who has had from a broken family or not from a broken family, has no religious identity, has no community identity, but identifies with this drug dealer who's got the fast cars, the nice house, or might not have a nice house,
It's
might
not
live in an
lavish
inner city
lifestyle.
place,
That what we
lots of
call
money.
lavish lifestyle. Yeah. It's what
Yeah,
we call the
might
lavish
not have a
lifestyle.
lavish lifestyle,
Yeah.
might just be a good leader.
Yeah.
The fact that when they sit in his presence, he says everything that resonates with him. He might be sitting in bloody BD3 or BD4, or it doesn't have to be Asian. He
Sure.
sits there and he says, "I feel your pain. I know
Sure.
you're unemployed, but I've got money here. Do these jobs for me.
Sure.
Listen this music. Look, I'm going to give you a studio. You come up with some tracks for me. You upload it onto YouTube." That is what's going to kill us now moving forward. And it's that leadership that I agree with Shara, that youth work needs to come back. We need to streamline and restructure what engagement of young people is from now and the future. I'm not a young person no more. I'm nearly hitting 50. And I can't get it down with the kids no more. But there are kids out there that can be influenced. And I don't know, but I honestly think that leadership is the other one is the drug dealers.
Sure.
We need to break that. And I'd like to see T&A put their pictures up, because I'm sure the West Yorkshire police know who those drug dealers are,
Yeah.
the little runners.
Yeah.
I'd like to see those parents see that their kids are doing that, because that
Yeah.
is more damage to the city
Than anything else.
than anything else. Those
Yeah.
little canisters, Sharon, that are literally in the city centre,
Yeah.
in parts of Barkrend Road, on the floor. Nobody's
Beauty
doing out
spots.
about it.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
I see women
Yeah.
walk past it every morning.
Yeah.
And I
So
say to him, "Look, Auntie,
we
do you know
had
what this
a
is?"
yeah, so we had a whole podcast on that where we had the brother come in and he explained it, and it was really eye opening. So he opened up my eyes around that, and I think we spent over an hour asking, like, informing parents, and like me as a parent myself, I didn't realize how ignorant I was to the topic. Or when the brother came on and he's telling about the canisters and how they use them and what signs as a parent I should look at to really get to understand what's going on in my own household. But we've come up to the hour mark, and our time allocation is an hour. So I want to
Jazakallah.
start.
Thank you.
So I just want to start wrapping it up. So there's so much to unpack in some of the stuff we've said today, and some of the topics we heard. The passionate pleas, the passionate voices of both of our panelists to really bring home the message of the failings of the leaders back then, even some of the failings now, and then some of the issues going forward. And we went on to other topics beyond the riots, and we started talking about impacts on our youth and what we can do and how we can possibly help and go forward. As a closing statement, Mola Sahib, I just want you to try summarizing some of the topics and just give us some light at the end of the tunnel, maybe, of where we are. So, because I know you talk to the police a lot more, Nasab. There's a lot of engagement with the police, and you talk to other emergency service, and you talk to youth. There's some of the organizations that come into masjid and do some of the stuff that where you talk to some of the youth. So,
Can I be apologised because I've got to get my football in about 15 minutes and I need to get to the side of Barker End Road. I'm just going to quickly wrap it up from my point of view before I log off.
Bismillah.
Bismillah. So, I will say from the conversations we've had with Zahida, from myself and Monana, you know what I mean, there needs to be more work done with our communities. There needs to be more work with institutions. There needs to be more work done with local authorities. There needs to be more work done with schools, more work with youth centres, more work with young people, and more work with communities. And because the dynamics for young people and the community has changed 20 years ago to what it is now. We need more investment. We need more leadership. We need more youth centres. We need infrastructures that's actually going to empower some of our young people to become future leaders. But if we don't have that in place, unfortunately, 20 years later, we're still in that same situation where there's nothing actually changed for Bradford. Yes, it's still run down. Yes, there isn't any investment coming. Yes, we built better community relationships with local authorities and the police and various different organisations. But is that enough for Bradford to move forward? No, it's not. I'm sorry, but we need more. We actually need more. We need more people to get involved. We need more people to actually come to the forefront and say, you know what, this is my community, and there's no way we're going to allow it to continue the way it's working, because we need to make sure that it benefits the people and the people that we serve. So, so from my point of view, do pop down to the centre, do pop down and have a conversation around, some of the work that we do. And inshallah, Jazakallah for your time today. And if we need to come back again, Zahida, we'll be happy to talk about this until 20 years. We actually cover it all. And so yeah, Jazakallah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Jazakallah, thank you for your time. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Walaikum salam.
Mola Sad, do you want to just say some parting words to wrap up? I think you're on mute, Mola Sad. Mola Sad, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was just saying that, Masha, we've heard a lot from Sister Zaida and also Brother Shadat today, and I'm sure we can take a lot with us. I think first and foremost, even at the end, we've gathered. We have to take responsibility ourselves, isn't it? Do you understand? From the Bradford riots, positive, negative, whatever's come out of it, from every incident that happens in history, and in the Quran, when Allah mentions about incidents of previous nations, then Allah Ta'ala mentioned that these are lessons to learn from. So you have to learn a lesson from them, and you need to become better. So what we got to do is happened 20 years on. What have I made myself, first of all, as an individual? Have I made myself a better person? And as a family, as a community, is it a better place to live? Do you understand? So we've got to take responsibility of our actions. And on the day of Qiyamah, that's what Allah will ask us, what did you do? Do you understand? So first and foremost, and I think Masha Sister Zaida mentioned, there's a lot of issues within our communities. There's drugs issues, crime issues, knife crime, lots of other things we can go into. And if we carried on talking, we can carry on talking all night out regarding issues. But as an individual, I've got to think, one day I've got to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will ask me, where did you spend your youth? What did you do with it? You understand? You had health, you had wealth, you were living in England, you had, people are living in, around the world in worse states than us, and they're getting on with life. What are we doing with ourselves? What are we doing for our hereafter? You understand? And as a Muslim, we're going to stand up for justice wherever we are. You understand? Even in the hadith, it comes, even if against your own family member. Even if it's against your own self, you got to stand up for justice. So that's what we've got to do. And we've got to carry on campaigning and supporting whatever injustice is going on throughout the world, whether it be locally, whether it be around the world. But main thing, take responsibility of our own actions. If we do that, then at least that will bring the taqwa, the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hearts, especially as the days of Dhul Hijjah began. The whole purpose of these days of Dhul Hijjah is to learn that Ibrahim alayhi salam, every time he was told to submit to Allah, he sacrificed himself. He didn't look at other people, he looked at himself. I need to do it.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need to do. That I need to do it. I need to submit. And submitting is not easy, it's difficult. But the change, when you put your foot on that nafs of yours and control yourself, you'll become successful. And I think that's what we got to do. May Allah Ta'ala gives all the tawfiq, and appreciate the guests coming on today. Jazakallah.
Mulana Sahib, can I just say a big thank you to my families that were on the campaign. Um, they are I feel like I've been their voice, but they were my strength. Those families that were on the campaign, who stood on that line outside the courts, they were the true heroes for me. They inspired me more than they realize, and that is why I still fight for that cause, because each one of their faces still haunts me. And I've lost some of the women, the mothers who have passed away, and I just hope that their kids can appreciate that their mums stood up for them against a whole city. And that's what I'm proud of. And that's what I said to my daughter, that those faces on the campaign are real women who stood up for their children, and I've not seen that in 20 years since. And I don't want to see it again, but I think they're the real heroes. And I do dua for them every day, that, may Allah make it easy for them. Even the brothers that have come out, Allah make it easy for them, because it's not easy.
Ameen.
Um,
Ameen.
it's hard.
Masha. So just on closing comments, because we're well over our time. So as everyone knows, Masjid Umar is building this whole new project, and that's going to, inshallah, help with some of these topics that we've been talking about, to try connecting with the community and try helping us just get better. So down on the bottom of the link, there's the GoFundMe page, there's a sort code and account number. There's a contact if you want to contact Zulfikar Bhai, who's doing the collections. So any of them ways to try donate, try getting us this masjid up and running, so we can do some of this work to try helping connect with our youngsters and try getting them onto the right path rather than the wrong path, and making the right people their leaders and getting the right role models up in front of their lives. So inshallah, please try and help and donate with that. If you wanna if you like these podcasts and you want them to go out to wider, like and subscribe so we can get up the YouTube algorithm and we can kind of get this out to more people. The Mustard doesn't take any money for these, and Molna Saab and everyone at our Gurlington is doing this for free. But to help us just get out to a wider audience, please like and subscribe the channel. Next week's podcast is going to be an interesting one. So we have a brother called Abdullah Afzal, and everyone would have seen him. He plays Amjad in the series Citizen Khan. He's a really funny character in that, and I'm sure he's a comedian and actor by trade. He's a very funny brother. So he's actually got a really interesting backstory, which we're going to get into in next week's podcast. So next week at 7 o'clock, inshallah, we'll be here. We'll be talking to him about a variety of topics, but it should be very interesting, and we should get some laughs out of that. So please tune in and spread the word, and we'll see you, inshallah, next week at 7 o'clock. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.